Yeah, I forgot
So you
because
can go
it's got
whenever.
the stupid countdown.
Yeah, you can go whenever.
Oh, so did you click it
Yeah,
already?
yeah, and I can edit it
Okay,
out for you.
all right. Let's go ahead and look at the playoff rankings. Joining me for this is going to be Johto, number one superstar, all-time target on his back man, Pokemon John, aka Baby Keith.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for reminding me. If I get to the playoffs, I got two angry people I just beat who are most definitely going to come and rip me to shreds. But
I mean, in fairness, a lot of other people want to come at you and rip you to
yes,
shreds. They just don't have the statistical ability to.
no, no,
Yeah.
yeah, that, yep, I've noticed that. I think Gubs, and who we're going to start with. He's one of those in week 14 who's pretty ready to stick it to me and say he's number one in the league because that's what he's gunning for. I've heard it from him. I know it's just who he is, and he's been doing pretty good. He's number one right now in Kano.
He is. He's number one with an 8-4, and I believe a plus 20 differential. My differential might be off, but I think that's right.
Regardless, that's at least 16 above everyone else in that conference.
Yeah, and that's 19 above Kote, who's the only person tied with him for wins and losses. So yeah, that the loss this week kind of hurt Kote, but granted, he needs a lot to catch up. It's not mathematically impossible for him to catch up, but Gubbs would have to lose what his matches pretty badly
I think
and only
possibly,
win
yeah.
by very small amounts, while Kote would have to lose by almost nothing and win by a huge amount. To if they were to keep the same win loss, if you ignore win loss, I guess he could catch up differential by just getting 2-6-0s and Gubbs losing. But
And I think it's not impossible, but it's so impossible with Gubbs's core of what is it?
of everything,
Heatran,
of Cel
Skarmory,
yeah,
Celebi, Gastrodon. Like he's not going to get 6-0 swept.
no, I mean I can't fathom a world in which he gets 6-0 swept. He has so much stuff. I mean, as we've seen him run it a couple of times this season. If nothing else, he always has self-destruct Snorlax. So it's like
It's going to kill something.
yeah, that's gonna take something with him and give him a 5-0.
Yeah, he's always got that. If
Yeah,
nothing
he's
else, we'll see that.
yeah. We have the self-destruct trump card if things start to go
And we
wrong.
can't leave out the fact that he has the MVP right now. There's actually it's going to be the MVP unless like something gets two 6-0s by themselves. Mega
Yeah,
Panzer.
well, most likely you with
Yeah.
Terrakion. Like, I think you're in the second place spot. So unless Terrakion just goes on a rampage, which I don't think it will, because I think at this point everybody's probably planning for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, which is impressive when you look at Gubbs' team, and the most consistent weaknesses across his team are ice and rocks,
Yep.
and yet Mega Pinsir is just doing work.
Yeah. I mean I don't want to say anything at all because I feel like anything I say will only
Can be used against you.
can only be used against me week 14. But
Yeah.
I think he's just done a really good job. I know he had that little slump in the middle of the season. He lost two 1-0s, and I think that really just that hit him hard,
Yeah, that's a
especially
morale crippler.
a
You
one
can't.
HP loss. And I mean, I'd make fun of him a lot for it because I wanted to trade Alakazam badly. But if he had just had Shadow Ball, he's like Signal Beam against this one Pokemon that Joe's brought like in two battles. Like Gubbs, that sounds a little silly when he brings Kofag every week, and Shadow Ball is super effective against that. So it's
Eh,
just one of those oversights that you can't ever take back. Min max was a factor, and it kills you. But he's
it
back.
does. Yeah, the weird thing about that is he'd won so big already that by the time he had that series of losses, he was still in the teens to maybe low 20s in differential,
Yeah.
and he's still up there because when he wins, he just wins big again, which is, you know, attributed to that ridiculous core.
Yeah.
Like, you can't take him down, and he's just going to slowly whittle you down in a way that isn't a stall team at all. It's just,
It's a good
it's,
core. It's one of those.
yeah.
It's like I remember what was it? Celebi and Heatran was one of the best cores of fourth gen.
Yeah, Celatran was the
Yeah.
big deal, man.
And then he has that plus Skarmory, plus Gastrodon, and then I mean Snorlax too. Assault Vest he brings out a lot.
Snorlax has been tanking hits, and I always like it's probably most overlooked on his team even last season. But Togekiss, like
Yeah. Oh,
obviously it's overlooked because he used it so offensively last year and hasn't used it as much this year. But Togekiss will take a hit for days. Even
yes.
you can even like I personally favor like bold Togekiss as a physical wall, like which most people don't run, but it's fantastic.
Yeah. That I
It's
mean,
the
God.
typing alone, like
I mean, the typing alone is why it went from UU not even really getting used too much to OU, and that's a big jump.
absolutely. Yeah, it's Ghost has got a good team and he's got the record and he's got differential that while he is technically not mathematically locked into the playoffs or locked into the number one spot, the statistical odds of anyone taking a spot from him, let alone, the top spot from him, is incredibly low.
So
Uh,
basically, what we are saying is you are going to be seeing him in the Kanto Conference Finals.
yeah, he's not. It's very unlikely that he isn't gonna have a nice relaxing week off in the Arizona heat. But second up team is the Toronto Maple Leafs, who at this point are less of a lock than they seemed to be the week before. Steve Magnitude, the Streak Killer, putting an end to that, dropping down the differential to a very attainable and passable range.
Oh my God, that was just no one saw that week coming. I mean, he Kote really just choked. He put himself in a position where he had a very good chance to lose. Didn't put too much preparation in. Let his ego get ahead of him. He'd been on a 6 win streak, which is pretty awesome considering he had a pretty rocky start. I mean, the trade helped him
Yeah.
immensely, but still, you have to play and you have to play consistently
And
to
he
be
even
well
went
to
out
get
of his
6-0.
way, against Danza to prove that Polito was not the team maker for him. Like
Mm.
Auto Rain was not the deciding factor. He can win matches without the rain.
And that's
You know.
it was a big statement. That's not something that everyone could do. I mean, that's like me going up against Tom and saying, I'm not bringing Terrakion even though I know it completely wrecks his team. I'm going to
Yeah.
leave it and try and beat it. That's stupid. I wouldn't do that. But Kote had the balls to do it, and he
And
did it.
yeah,
And
he absolutely did it. A super bulky team to, take down. And he did it pretty handily, then obviously chokes against the light roster of the Sauce Bucks. But eh,
he does have a chance to redeem himself. If he beats Alex, he's in the playoffs. If he loses to Alex, there's a good chance he's not in the playoffs. So he's got to, under pressure, get this big win. And
yeah, he also does have a solid chance week 14 to come back, even if he does slip week 13, because he plays the Atlanta Hawluchas, who, have struggled back and forth this week. It's a good team, but not, you know,
I mean, it's also Fizz. I know he hadn't played as much at the end of fifth gen, hasn't played like at
yeah.
all in sixth gen. So a lot of it's more of a learning curve, and I think at this point in the season, he's getting more on. So it would be harder for Kote to beat him than really to think about, oh, he's playing the worst team in his conference. He's just going to go win. But I think, as you said, I mean, there's a very good chance he's going to come back, possibly even get a big win out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's mathematically possible and not that far off for Kosei to get knocked out of the playoffs. I don't see it happening
Don't expect it.
just based off the quality of battler he is and based off the quality of team he has. You know, pretty much everybody in the league has one of those things.
Hmm.
He's got both and he's been using them, you know,
Consistently too, which I
yeah,
think is the biggest thing in this league.
to great effect. Speaking of the Atlanta Hawluchas, though, they're not at number three. Despite winning their match this week, because the New York Yankees won their match this week, the Hawluchas got kicked out of the playoffs, which I have on good source from behind the scenes action has led to an intense firing passion in Fizz's heart to destroy the Chicago Grand Bulls and their coach Kyle, whose loss kicked him out of the playoffs. That's a rough thing to happen, to lose your playoff spot on a week where you win.
Yeah, that's. I mean, he did everything he had to do, and it,
Yeah,
didn't
on
matter.
he won against a conference, a playoff lock in the other conference. He beat Joe in, like that's bragging rights
Yeah,
in this league.
that's a fucking movie about to like be told.
Yeah,
He starts
exactly.
the
That's
comeback.
that's Fizz's Angels in the outfield moment and shut down by the Grand Bulls' inability to pull out a win against the Yankees, an inability that was ridiculous because he got swept by Scarf Mamo.
As a lover of Mammoth I had to say I enjoyed that. But when
Oh,
I
I enjoyed it too. I think Mammoth Swine's pretty criminally underrated, especially in this league. But
when when I realized the reason that he swept or Shady was able to sweep him is because he had a like no speed invested Venusaur, I just was
on his Sun team,
on his Sun team.
it
I
was it was it was a rough match to watch the Grand Bulls go from 5-2 to losing 2-0. That
but
was just
the one thing though that with that battle is Shady came off of vacation. That was the first thing he did, and even though it seemed like Kyle just threw it away, he still got the win, and he's now in a position where he's number 3 in the conference, and if the
yep.
season ended, playoff spot. He still has to work
Yep.
for it, but he's there.
Statistically has passed the Red Sox, tied up for wins losses, I believe, but just really it's interesting that Shady's done this well, having a very back and forth season, and his differential the entire season has never dropped above or below -4, +4.
Yeah.
He's literally been -4 at his lowest and +4 at his highest the entire season, which I mean, if nothing else, I guess that goes to consistency, and consistency was enough to get him to the playoffs last season,
Yep.
along with a good team and just solid fundamental gameplay. It might be enough to get him to the playoffs this season too at this rate. I believe, 2 wins would not necessarily lock, or actually 2 wins would lock him in because week 14 he plays the Boston Red Sox.
And I think even with a loss, if he beats the
Yeah,
Boston Red Sox, he's in.
even with a lot, well, it's good. It will come. I think at that
Ooh,
point, it's probably
Alex.
going to come down to differential, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Alex is also 7-5, or the Thunderous. So if they win
yep,
too, but we'll get to
yep,
that later.
yeah. But as it stands right now, Shady's got a little bit of flexibility. He can afford to lose week 13 as long as he wins week 14 with a good differential.
Yeah.
Just because, like you were saying, 2 people tied for records, the Boston Red Sox and Alex with the Oklahoma City Thunderous, tied at 7-5, but both of those teams are in the negative differential. Alex being in a fairly lower negative differential. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. If week 13 Shady can pull out a win and finally bump up above the +4, or if it's gonna be a rough week for him. I think it's gonna be a rough week for him no matter what because he plays Gubs,
Yeah.
and Gubs is a monster at this point, as we discussed earlier. But yeah, moving up into the number 3 spot, and like you said, if season ended now, he's in. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't.
Nope.
He's gotta put in a little bit more legwork, but I think he's entirely capable of it. It wasn't, a super blowout game against the Red Sox at the beginning of the season, and he might have learned, and he may come in with a plan. Like you said, it's also worth noting came off a vacation to win this week.
And I remember he said in his commentary, because I had to watch the entire thing because I knew that Kyle completely blew it, and it just sounded like I don't need go watch that if you need a God.
Yeah, and I mean, if
Okay.
you watch Shady's video, there's no way he's gonna win.
Yep.
It seems like for the
He
first
actually
20,
apologized to his fans at one point because he
yeah,
played so terribly and he lost.
yeah, but then he won.
And I think that's another thing. He didn't give up. I mean, he did say that, but he was doing every play. He didn't, I know some people in some
Yeah,
battles have just been like, damn it. And
yeah.
I've been
I
like
mean,
that against Alex. He killed
he's
something. I was
still
like,
even when he didn't necessarily have a view of his win condition, he still managed to break down on a turn by turn basis what is the best play I can make this turn, which is, I think, a really good thing, and I think it's a good skill that he has that a lot of people
Yep.
overlook. Even I've overlooked it. He's not, the guy that can look at the team rosters and say, I need this to win, I need this to win, I need to take that out to win, I need to take that out to win, and systematically do it. But he does have a pretty good hold on just the basic concept of this turn, where am I at? What can I do to go forward a turn?
Yeah, and I think that's enough to win. In like some scenarios, you would rather have the way Nick plays, and he does way too many calcs sometimes, which is a good thing. He overplans. He makes sure he knows everything. Shady gets the team that he think will be the best. He'll look at the team, he'll do plan and get the team he wants. But he does the calcs during the game, so he does the turn-to-turn thing. And while some people have a plan for the end game and all this stuff, he's playing every single turn. And doing it live and everything. So it's there, all the pressure's then, and it seems that sometimes the pressure is just on the other people to make the team. And when you get there, if your plan just falls apart, sometimes you just don't know what to do. Shady just keeps on going, and this time he got a win. He's there, and I actually think his 7-5 record right now is more impressive than him making the playoffs last year. Not to saying that that wasn't impressive, but I think that
The
regardless of what
level of
happens,
competition he's had to go up against
yeah,
this year is just
I think it's really. I think it speaks a lot. That's what I was trying to say. It speaks a lot to how he's progressed as a player and how he's progressed in this league. That he's here right now and he could be in the playoffs. And I mean, he could win it all. It just depends on if he wins the next two games or if he beats Nick. And if he beats Nick, I think he really deserves it, and that would be a huge one. But unless you have much else to say about Shady, I think we need to go to that other side and talk about
yeah. We
Nick.
can talk about the three coattail riding chasers.
Yep.
The guys struggling. Go all three of these guys are fighting for that third place spot. Like I said, technically anyone can be knocked out, but it's not going to happen. It's really a battle for that third place playoff spot. Third place and technically tied right there. Same win loss, same differential actually. Boston Red Sox, Oklahoma City Thunderous at 7-5 and -1, both of them respectively. Um, in my mind, I put the Red Sox up a little bit higher just because overall I think they've had a better season.
And I think the last two games have really been a little unfortunate for Nick, both with
Yeah.
him not having internet whatsoever. Like, not even the internet that he gets off of his phone. But the first week, he had a 3-0 loss because he couldn't play. So who knows what would happen there. And the next
Yeah.
week, personal problems and the internet and all that stuff just kind of boiled over. And the loss was worse than it should have been because he just, a rash decision was made. He left the battle and he suffered the consequence. But I don't really think that speaks of his season. Like, I still think of him as
No,
the 6-1.
I think it's actually worth noting here that with two losses he's still tied, two losses at, an 0-3 and an 0-5. He's still tied with Alex, who got here through his own match not going through, but it being in his favor and him getting a +3 differential with a win. Statistically, Alex has not put up big differential
No.
numbers. I don't think he's put up anything higher than a 3-0 in a match this season. So, I mean, it could have been very much in his favor to, not have to actually play through the match this week and just get the +3 bumping him up. And like I was saying, the fact that Nick hasn't played two matches and took the losses that he took and is still right there at it speaks to that team, the general team structure and his own ability for the
Yeah.
rest of the matches that he was playing.
And I think one thing that a lot of people have forgotten is he was the clear number one player in the league for the first half of the season. And obviously, some people figured out the things he was doing. He got some losses, and then he had all those problems. And I think at least I won't say both of them because the one against Gubs, I mean, he just lost that one. But the one that, the internet was a problem. That
Yeah,
one,
against Joe, that's just
I mean, Joe's a great player.
bad fortune.
We're just gonna pretend that he could have played anyone. I would rather give him that win if he had the ability to have the battle and sit down and do what Nick does and make all those predictions and all that stuff. And I know,
I think that might be a part of why he slipped, though. I do think there's been a little bit of fatigue
yeah,
partway through the season. I think some of the planning has slipped from the degree it was, which, he's still done well. He's still pulled out wins, but not with the consistency he had. He had a pretty long undefeated streak for a little while there, but I think a long season this week has hurt several people
Yeah,
in their, GBA endurance challenge, as
yeah,
it were. But I still think Nick's in this. Like we were saying before, it's really going to come down to that match versus Shady at this point. He could put up big numbers this week. Who's he play this week? He plays Steve this week. So he could knock Steve out of contention this week and put up big numbers, which would help him in the long run. But it's theirs is the drama. I think. I
yeah.
think the Red Sox Yankees are gonna be the Week 14. Whoever wins that makes the playoffs. I could be wrong. We could see a big move from Alex taking down Cote this week, which would tie them up in score and put him in contention. Like
Yeah.
that would be a pretty big piggyback jump.
But I'm also going to put it out there as someone who loves the GBA and is taking time out of my day just to do this with you because not only do I love battling, I like looking at this conference. It's a lot of fun. I want to see
Yeah.
them battle. I want to see that final battle come down to who makes
Yeah,
the
you
playoffs.
you really want the drama. You want it down to the wire, week 14. Oh God, I made it.
And also,
You
I think
know.
it would be better for both of them and both of their seasons. Shady's had a really busy middle of the season. Nick's had a really stressful, and I mean, he did get fatigued and all that that part of the season. I think it's time. 2 games left for both of them. The week 13 doesn't matter as much. It's kind of a okay, get ready in the week 14. Put the effort in that. At least Nick put the effort in. He hasn't put in since he went undefeated for the beginning of the season, and Shady putting in more effort than he really has. Taking time to really make this battle a priority. I know there isn't a lot of time in the day for him to put this above a ton of other things, but hopefully they both are able to put the amount of effort in that at least I would imagine myself putting in at this like this point and with this meaning so much, and we get a really really good battle, or at least a clear winner of who deserves to be in the playoffs and who will possibly contend for the title.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm with you on that one. I think it deserves the drama. I think we're gonna get the drama. I really do. I think it's gonna be a slobber knocker. It's gonna be interesting to see. At the very least, even if Nick can't reliably put the battle up, we'll know Shady will have his up at noon on
Hmm.
Sunday because one of the perks of doing this professionally is he has to do it professionally and keep to a schedule. So
And
that's
actually, the best thing about this, so everyone watching this, since Shady does it live, you can't tell in his voice or demeanor. I know some people, the video will just be shorter if they lost or longer if they won. And
yeah.
no matter what, it's live. So you get to see everything, every
Yep.
reaction, every play. So that would be the place to stop by for what could be one of the most important battles until the postseason.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It arguably is. I mean we've had some turning point matches and things like that, weird switches, but this is gonna be one of the few things where someone directly decide, not decides, but has as much direct control over whether they make the playoffs or not as they possibly can.
And I think another person who had control over the destiny would be Kote if he wins against Alex. But Alex also has control of his destiny if he does beat Kote, and if he brings Kote down to their level, and or at least his level with a win, then he really mixes a lot of things up.
It does, and it becomes a super clusterfuck with some upsets. We could see some massive things because, like I said, Steve plays Nick this week. A win there doesn't, not, if Steve wins, that doesn't knock Nick out of contention, and it just ties Steve up with him and whoever else stays at 7-5, whether it be Shady or anything like that. And that's just, again, it's going to make it really close and really tight. And it is worth noting that down there at 6-6, Sawsbucks are still in it, and
Hmm.
at -3, that's not a bad differential when you look at the two teams above him are at -1. Shady's only at a +4. Cote, while 2 wins up, is only at +1.
Yeah.
That's Steve's still absolutely in this too, and a big win against the Red Sox and a win against Alex in Week 14 could still put him over the top. I think it's less likely because he is in the must-win position, whereas the others can kind of, take a loss and move on. But
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as commentators, we have to say the possibilities, and the only reason where we finally get to the decision that I think this is going to happen, I don't think this is going to happen, that we're having the odds stacked against Alex and Steve, is because they're going against opponents that need the win to make the playoffs. If they win, they clinch it. Like Steve has to win two in a row against two good players.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do because he has to play people who might not be better players than him, might not have better teams, but have played a better season to this point. Two times
And I
in a
mean,
row.
not just the fact that he has to win the two in a row, it's that he's had to win a couple before that.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, he's had to win the past 4 weeks in a row.
Mm.
Uh, he had to beat Alex in week 11. He had to beat Kote in week 12. He's got to beat Nick in week 13. He's got to beat Alex again in week 14. Like that's a lot of pressure. He's done a good job of it. He's killed a lot of streaks, but he has to also keep his own streak going while doing that. That's an uphill battle if ever there were one. And we've also seen, I think both of them, well, no, actually, they're not necessarily safe because of the way some of the other matches are playing out. I guess they could be eliminated based off of other people winning, regardless of how they do. But,
And that's one of those things. It's hard to be like, yeah, I really think Steve has a good chance to make the playoffs when he has to win both games and still could be not making the playoffs because
yeah,
of other
exactly. He
things.
has to win both games, and other people have to lose specific matches for him. It's the position Fizz was in as of last week, and obviously won his match, but the other match he needed a win on didn't happen, and that's going to be rough. That's
So I
it's
think I really think Steve's going to be in the shade, and not the shady, because shady was the one that won. That's what I was thinking of. He's going to be in the
yeah.
fizzy position of someone's going to get a win, and whether or not he gets the win or a loss, it's going to be almost impossible. And I think there's a good chance that if he loses, he's going to be eliminated. But I think even with based off of wins that other people might get, that he might be, if not eliminated, almost completely eliminated by next week. And then it's just going to go down to the three people who are tied now. And just based off of all the teams they have to play, I think Alex week 14. I think it's kind of a pecking order. I think it's going to be the
hmm
Fizz, the Steve, the Alex, and then the Shady versus Nick. So
Yep, I absolutely agree with you. Like you were saying, I have to present the facts in such a way, but at this point, most people should be able to look at it and go, it's kind of a Nick Shady's
yeah.
thing to lose at this point. It really is.
And if Alex does win, we're not saying Alex is bad or Alex, I love you.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you're bad. I think you can definitely do it. But there's also things that we know behind the scenes. We know that Alex just made a huge move, is going to grad school now. He just moved states. A lot of stuff has happened in his life. And that's not an easy thing to just go through all that and be like, okay, I'm going to put a ton of time, win all of my GBA battles against people who have really good records. That's not only does he have the uphill battle of having to beat Gubs next week. That's who he's
yeah.
battling, right? He has to beat
No, he
Gubs.
battles Kote
Oh, okay.
in
Well,
week 13. Yeah,
maybe they're on.
which is equivalent.
Yeah,
I would
I put
say.
them on the
I
same
would.
level. So he has to beat
Yeah,
Kote
yeah.
and deal with all the actual real life stuff that really matters in the real world.
Yep.
So
That's
we're stacking it on Alex right now. So that's just one of those reasons of why he's below Nick, even though they have the same differential, and one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate to have to, do that, but that's part of the deal. Is you gotta look at things and assess the real value of stuff. Alex could pull it off. That would be great drama too. It would be fun to see, but historically, he's not the guy that
No.
cinches the playoffs with the big thing. He may historically be the opposite of the guy who blows his playoff chances at the very end of the season, if you recall season one. But,
But
he doesn't have to repeat it.
yeah, and I think that about wraps everything up we wanted to go over, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers it up. I want to thank John for coming on and talking to me. I really like talking to John. It's funny. We didn't know each other at all before we started doing this, but I think we just enjoy talking to each other and talking about this stuff the same way.
I think
And
we're just giant nerds about a fake league about people
yes,
we're all
the
friends with.
fake Pokemon Sports League and its statistics. It's
You know what?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Hopefully this continues and for more seasons, so we can just come back to this season and be like, remember when Nick and Shady had to battle it? And that was that. We're gonna be those guys who some people will look down on, and we'll enjoy it. We'll be
Yeah, and if you enjoyed having John on here, be sure to comment and say things like that in the bottom. I would even say that you could maybe look forward to seeing him again in some other video with me. I'm not saying it's going to be any of the power playoff rankings for the next couple of weeks, but maybe at some point in the GBA future, we will also be talking about some things.
exactly.
Maybe.
It could happen.
Or if everybody's like, John is stupid, I will dump him
Damn it.
and replace him with
No.
someone,
Don't.
probably Fizz.
Okay, well, I like Fizz, I guess.
Yeah,
I can't
Fizz
grow
is a
the
good
beard,
guy.
so as long as you tell me that's
I
the
can't.
reason.
It's not, but it's not. But you've got your own value. Anyways, again, thank you, John, for coming on.
Of course.
Yeah, and you can just cut it there.
Okay.
All right, now that I'm back on my own, I'm just going to go ahead and knock out the Johto conference stuff real quick because the poor, sad truth of it all is it's far less interesting. John won his match against Tom, so he moves up a spot. Tom doesn't move up a spot. Joe lost his match against Fizz. He also doesn't move up a spot. While this does not statistically mean that John is a lock for the first place bye, it does put him in a much better spot, a much better differential spot, and it's just an improbability, not an impossibility, but a very strong improbability that anyone's going to take that away from him at this point. So you're probably going to see them stay roughly where they are. The week match of Joe and Tom is probably going to, mess with that spot a little bit more, but things could happen in such a way that that match doesn't necessarily decide who is second or third, and regardless, they're probably still going to be the two playing each other in the finals anyways. That being said, that is going to wrap up the entire video for me. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment down below. Let's talk about stuff. There's progressively less stuff to talk about as far as what your expectations for the season are, but there's plenty of other cool things to talk about, like what happened in matches this week and how you think the playoffs are going to be handled, and what you're looking forward to in the playoffs and what you're looking forward to next season. Peace.